All right, let's finish off chapter 18 and see what happens. So we're picking up right here. Nope, we are picking up right here. But it was crowded. White people had preempted that point of elevation, and there was no more room. They could climb up one of its high sides and down the other, that was all. Miles further on, still no rest. They passed a dead man in a sitting position on a hammock, entirely surrounded by wild animals and snakes. Common danger made common friends. Nothing sought a conquest over the other. Another man clung to a cypress tree on a tiny island. A tin roof of a building hung from the branches by electric wires, and the wind swung it back and forth like a mighty axe. The man dared not move a step to his right, lest this crushing blade slit him open. He dared not step left, for a large rattlesnake was stretched full length with his head in the wind. There was a strip of water between the island and the fill, and the man clung to the tree and cried for help. "The snake won't bite ya," TK yelled to him. "He's scared to go into a coil, scared he'll be blown away. Step around that side and swim off." Soon after that, TK felt he couldn't walk anymore. Not right away. So he stretched alongside the road to rest. Janie spread herself between him and the wind, and he closed his eyes and let the tiredness seep out of his limbs. On each side of the fill was a great expanse of water like lakes, water full of things living and dead, things that didn't belong in water. As far as the eye could reach, water and wind playing upon it in fury. A large piece of tar paper roofing sailed through the air and scudded along the fill until it hung against a tree. Janie saw it with joy. That was the very thing to cover tea cake with. She could lean against it and hold it down. The wind wasn't quite so bad as it was anyway. The very thing. Poor tea cake. She crept on hands and knees to the piece of roofing and caught hold of it by either side. Immediately the wind lifted both of them, and she saw herself sailing off the fill to the right, out and out over the lashing water. She screamed terribly and released the roofing, which sailed away as she plunged downward into the water. "Tea cake!" He heard her and sprang up. Janie was trying to swim, but fighting water too hard. He saw a cow coming slowly towards the fill in an oblique line. A massive built dog was sitting on her shoulders and shivering and growling. The cow was approaching Janie. A few strokes would bring her there. "Make it to the cow and grab hold of her tail. Don't use your feet, just your hands is enough. That's right, come on." So what is happening in this action sequence? So Janie and Tea-Cake were walking on an elevated road, and water has risen on both sides. So hopefully that'll help you kind of picture the scene. And Tea-Cake is exhausted because he's been helping Janie kind of through the water and through the wind. And so he lays down to rest. And Janie tries to block him from the wind so that he can rest. Then she sees this piece of roof kind of blow over and get caught in a tree, and she goes to grab it so that she can use the piece of roof to protect Tea-Cake from the wind. However, an important thing to note is that she has to crawl to it because the wind is strong enough to carry away a person who's standing up. And so she doesn't really think this plan through very well because the piece of roof, when she moves it, catches the wind and it carries Janie over the water, and she lets go and she falls into the water. All right, so let's see what happens. Janie achieved the tail of the cow and lifted her head up along the cow's rump as far as she could above water. The cow sunk a little with the added load and thrashed a moment in terror. Thought she was being pulled down by a gator. Then she continued on. The dog stood up and growled like a lion, stiff standing hackles, stiff muscles, teeth uncovered as he lashed up with his fury for the charge. Tea-Cake split the water like an otter, opening his knife as he dived. The dog raced down the backbone of the cow to attack Janie, and Janie screamed and slipped far back on the tail of the cow, just out of reach of the dog's angry jaws. He wanted to plunge in after her, but dreaded the water somehow. Tea-Cake rose out of the water at the cow's rump and seized the dog by the neck. But he was a powerful dog, and Tea-Cake was overtired, so he didn't kill the dog with one stroke, as he had intended. But the dog couldn't free himself either. They fought, and somehow he managed to bite Tea-Cake high up on his cheekbone once. Then Tea-Cake finished him and sent him to the bottom to stay there. The cow, relieved of a great weight, was landing on the fill with Janie before Tea-Cake stroked in and crawled weakly upon the fill again. Janie began to fuss around his face where the dog had bitten him, but he said it didn't amount to anything. "He'd a raised hell, though, if you had grabbed me an inch higher and bit me in my eye. You can't buy eyes in the store, you know." He flopped to the edge of the fill as if the storm wasn't going on at all. Let me rest a while. Then us gotta make it into town somehow. It was the next day, by the sun and the clock, when they reached Palm Beach. It was a year later in their bodies. Winters and winters of hardship and suffering. The wheel kept turning round and round. Hope, hopelessness, and despair. The storm blew itself out as they approached the city of refuge. So what has happened in this action sequence? So Janie swims to a cow to help her stay afloat, but there's this big dog already on the cow's back, and it attacks her because it's scared. And so Tea Cake saves Janie by killing the dog, but the dog first bites Tea Cake on his face, which Janie, of course, is upset about. But Tea Cake's just grateful that the dog didn't get his eye. And so here, it's taken a full day, but they finally make it to the Palm Beach city. Havoc was there with her mouth open wide. Back in the Everglades, the wind had romped among lakes and trees. In the city, it had raged among houses and men. Tea Cake and Janie stood on the edge of things and looked over the desolation. "How can I find a doctor for your face in all this mess?" Janie wailed. "Ain't got the damn doctor to study about. Us needs a place to rest." A great deal of their money and perseverance, and they found a place to sleep. It was just that. No place to live at all. Just sleep. Tea Cake looked all around and sat heavily on the side of the bed. "Well," he said humbly, "reckon you never suspected to come to this when you took up with me, did ya?" "Once upon a time, I never expected nothing, Tea Cake, but being dead from the standing still and trying to laugh. But you come along and made something out of me, so I'm thankful for anything we come through together." "Thank you, ma'am." "You was twice noble to save me from that dog, Tea Cake. I don't expect you seen him like his eyes like I did. He didn't aim to just bite me, Tea Cake. He aimed to kill me stone dead. I'm never to forget them eyes. He wasn't nothing all over but pure hate. Wonder where he come from." "Yeah, I did see him too. I was frightened. I didn't mean to take his hate neither, but he had to die on me. He had to die or me won. My switchblade said it was him. Poor me, he'd tear me to pieces if it wasn't for you, honey. You don't have to say, if it wasn't for me, baby, 'cause I'm here. And then I want you to know that I'm a man here." How does this chapter end? So Janie and Tea Cake make it to the city, but they arrive to the city to find that it's also been severely damaged by the storm. And so Janie can't find Tea Cake a doctor, but Tea Cake doesn't really mind to find a doctor. He just wants to find a place to sleep. So it says through a lot of money and a lot of perseverance, they finally find a place to sleep, though they can't live there because everything's been destroyed, essentially. So Tea Cake again asks Janie if she's still happy to be with him despite all this trouble they've just gone through. And Janie says that she is grateful because of Tea Cake, she has a life worth living. And Tea Cake promises that he'll always be there to protect Janie. And so we see that this experience that Janie and Tea Cake have gone through, this near-death experience, has made their relationship stronger and brought them closer together. All right, guys. So that's the end of chapter 18. I will see you later for chapter 19. Bye.